Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Truppiana and I cover infamous gangsters throughout history. If you're a fan of true crime or the lives and legacies of some of history's most infamous gangsters, you've come to the right place because that's what we do here. I really hope you guys enjoyed my last episode on Kazuo Taoka, and if you did, you heard me talk a lot about my plan to try to take my channel in different directions at the end of the episode. Well, today's episode is the first step in that new direction, so we're gonna give it a try. Before we get to the episode, I did want to give you guys a bump date. Here's how it's looking. As of today, I am 27 weeks, 1 day. If this feels like it's been going on forever for you, imagine where I'm at, okay? I feel like I've been pregnant forever. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the episode that we've got going on today. So here's my plan. We all know about the infamous Tupac versus Biggie debacle, what happened there. East Coast versus West Coast, and everything that went down in the early to mid 90s, right? Like everybody knows about that. I feel like even if you're really young and you didn't grow up listening to these people, you've at least heard the bare necessities of what went on in that like epic drama. I also feel like this topic has been covered to death. There's been so many movies, TV shows, documentaries, podcasts, everything has covered this topic. But I've always had a pretty special interest in the topic, so I really just want to go through it myself. So here's my plan, okay? You guys know that, like, I am what you should call long-winded. I plan to do a set of these episodes. I'm gonna do a few episodes about Tupac, a few episodes about Biggie, and then an episode or two about the beef that they had with each other. What went down, what led to the destruction, and how it ended up claiming the lives of two people who seemed to be on the fast track to success, glory, fame, everything you could ever want, need, or dream about. These guys were right on the cusp of it right before they died. Now, how could that possibly happen to two guys that didn't even hit 30 years old? How could they both have died at the prime of their lives and their height of fame? Well, we're going to answer those questions together. Now, as I said, this topic has been covered a lot. Everybody in the world has covered this topic. But I do feel like I can offer a little bit of a deeper view in certain areas and go over some things that maybe not every single person has covered. And if you're anything like me, this is something that happened during your lifetime, and it's something you'd be interested in learning more about. So let's dive in. We'll take a little bit of a deeper look and hopefully learn something new, shall we? I'm gonna start off with Tupac, just because his fame came first. There's nothing, I don't take the Tupac side, he came first. He was famous before Biggie, so we're gonna start off with him. By the time Tupac and Biggie became friends, Tupac was already world famous. He was a world-famous artist, he was an actor, and Biggie was still an up-and-comer. He was only famous in his little neck of the woods, so Tupac definitely came first, so his episodes are coming first. So let's go through a quick background about Tupac, and then we'll veer into Biggie, and we'll see what happens. As I said, it's gonna be a few episodes per artist, and then we're gonna do an episode or two about what happened between them that led to each of their demises. The artist that everybody knows as Tupac Amaru Shakur was actually born Lisanne Parish Crooks on June 16, 1971 in East Harlem, New York. His mother, Alice Faye Williams, or as she would rename herself, Afeni Shakur, raised him in New York until the family relocated to Baltimore when he was just 13 years old. Afeni was a Black Panther, as was Lisanne's father, William Billy Garland. He didn't last very long with the name of Lisanne Parish Crooks. He was renamed at only 1 year old to Tupac Amaru Shakur. So it wasn't like a stage name or like a name that he chose for himself or anything. That was actually his name, and his mom renamed him this at 1 year old. His mom chose the name Tupac because she named him after Tupac Amaru II, the last Incan ruler. When Tupac was born, his mother married Lulumba Mutulu Shakur, and he signed the birth certificate. So Mutulu is the one that's on Tupac's birth certificate. He believed he was Tupac's father, and Shakur gave Tupac his last name, and this is a pretty famous and worldwide last name. Not very many people were actually born with the last name Shakur. It's kind of like a tribal thing. A lot of people have this last name, and it's a belief system to have that last name. It doesn't necessarily mean that your father and his father and his father had that last name. It just means that you belong to this belief system of the Shakurs. Either way, though, Mutulu has the last name Shakur, so he would give that last name to Tupac. So Tupac thinks that Mutulu is his father, but Mutulu and Tupac's mom would actually end up getting a divorce because Mutulu would find out that he's not actually Tupac's father. But Tupac never actually changed his last name. He kept the same last name, and he kept a relationship with Mutulu and his family. He called them his stepfather, stepbrother, and half-sister. And Mutulu was no joke. He was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted, and he was found guilty of the robbery of a Brinks armored truck. A robbery in which 2 police officers and a guard were killed. Now, neither of those 2 men, Billy Garland or Mutulu Shakur, were the men that Tupac believed was his actual father. He grew up thinking a man named Kenneth Legs Saunders was his father. Legs was a drug dealer, and he died of a heart attack when Tupac was really young. And let's say the heart attack was not out of nowhere. Legs was a low-level gangster, and he was a crack addict and a crack dealer. He would be the one that introduced Afeni to crack and would eventually get her hooked on it. Now, even though Legs really thought he was Tupac's father, he left Tupac and his mom and just kind of ghosted them. So when he died when Tupac was around 15 years old, it didn't really faze Tupac too much. Tupac eventually put out a song called Dear Mama, and in that song he wrote, "No love for my daddy, 'cause the coward wasn't there. He passed away and I didn't cry because my anger wouldn't let me feel for a stranger." It wasn't until way, way later that he would meet Billy Garland. He was already famous when he met Billy Garland, and Billy Garland told him that he was his father. He never got any kind of DNA test. He never confirmed that Billy Garland was actually his father, but he believed that Billy Garland was his father because he said that Billy looked like him and Billy's kids looked a lot like him, so he just believed it. Afeni, which is Tupac's mom, was a prior paralegal, and she worked with Mutulu. Together, they worked to provide adequate housing for Black residents in New York City. They would help them organize rent strikes. They provided legal assistance for advocates and activists that had been arrested and were fighting the legal system. And they were active members of the community, and they pretty much just helped wherever they could. They tried to be as helpful as humanly possible to everybody in their community. Now, before we get into the stuff about Tupac's mom, I want to stop for a minute and talk about the Black Panther Party and what their mission is, because the Black Panthers would have a huge impact on shaping Tupac into who he was and what made up his beliefs and what he made his music about. Every single person in his life as he was growing up was wrapped up in the Panthers. So you know his ideology was built on these ideals. So it's kind of important to go through who the Black Panthers were, because it's kind of like a buzzword, isn't it? Like, not very many people know what the Black Panthers actually were and what they believed in. So let's just go through it really quick. When it was originally formed, the Black Panther Party was a grassroots organization. It was organized from young Black men and women, and they wanted to empower Black people. The Black Panthers advocated for self-defense, and they never supported any kind of unprovoked, random, or indiscriminate violence. But they believed in the right to self-defense. If you come at me, I'm gonna come at you. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this is what the organization was built on. That doesn't mean that's what it would turn into later, but this is what it was built on. Stand your ground against somebody that's coming at you. And it believed in supporting and helping and being a community for the Black men and women in the areas that they were located. Now, the media would go out and they would portray this group to be a group of gun-toting gangsters. They were thugs and bloodthirsty fanatics. But in reality, most of the crime and violence that was done in the Black Panther Party was at the behest of the police themselves. They created it. Now, how could that be the case? Well, what they would do is they would have police officers infiltrate the organization, and they would plan out these barbaric attacks. And then they would arrest everybody that was actually in the Black Panther Party and portray these guys as evil and horrible people. Meanwhile, those crimes never would have taken place if the police officers didn't go undercover, come in and plan the attacks and do every single thing that was a step towards making these crimes happen. They coordinated the events. They orchestrated every single thing about these crimes. And all of the attacks that were carried out were because of these police officers. Once the government decided that they were going to neutralize the Black Panther Party, they started to assassinate Panthers, or they would imprison them for the rest of their lives. Tupac's godfather was a prime example of this. Elmer Geronimo Pratt was convicted of murdering a school teacher in a robbery in 1968. But after sitting in jail for 27 years, his conviction was overturned when it was discovered that the prosecution actually had evidence that they had ended up concealing. And that evidence proved that Pratt was not guilty. He had never actually done this crime, and he sat in jail for 27 years because of illegal and immoral shit that the prosecution did. Another example of this in Tupac's family was Tupac Shakur, who was shot 6 times on May 2nd, 1973, in a shootout with the New Jersey State Troopers after their car was pulled over on the side of the road. It's worth noting that he hadn't ever been found guilty of a crime, and he was just an activist. He was fighting for the rights of drug addicts in the community. So nobody ever really talks about why this shootout happened in the first place, but I've never seen mention that he pulled on the police officers first, or that he did anything that people would view as having deserved this attack. They just got pulled over on the side of the road, and then there was a shootout. So I don't know. I mean, you look at the fact that they're putting these Black Panthers away for life. I think it's pretty fair to assume that maybe Zaid and his people didn't initiate this fight. So probably the most nefarious thing that the government did in regards to the Black Panther Party was they sent a group of officers in to infiltrate the Black Panther Party, and they sent them in to orchestrate this attack. And the whole reason for it was that they wanted these undercover police officers to orchestrate an attack so that they could now turn around and grab the leaders of the Black Panther Party and put them on trial and turn the public against them, because the public always supported the Black Panther Party. They didn't do anything illegal. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just fighting for Black rights. There was nothing wrong with what they were doing. So the public didn't hate them, and the cops hated that. The cops did not like that the public supported the Black Panther Party. So they wanted to set the Black Panther Party up to do something that the public would view as egregious and horrible. And that's how we're going to get to the 21 Panthers trial. And now let me say, before I even start talking about this trial, Tupac's mom was a beast in this trial. His mom, Afeni, appeared before the court 9 months pregnant to stand trial for her part in the Panther 21 trial alongside Tupac's stepfather. Now, let's just stop and talk about this for a minute, because I think it's super interesting, and it probably has a huge part in raising Tupac into who he is now. This is going to show you the kind of person that his mom is. So I just want to talk about it for a second. My channel has chapters. If you don't want to hear about this, you can go to the next chapter, but I suggest you stay because it's super interesting to listen to. Now, this attack that included bombs and rifles took place on Friday, January 17th, 1969. The Panthers had placed dynamite at these 3 locations, and they all went off at 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday, January 17th. The first location was the 1st police precinct, because there's 2 police precincts involved in this attack. So the 1st police precinct is the Bronx 44th precinct. And this dynamite never actually ended up going off. It turns out that the Black Panther attack had been infiltrated by undercover police officers, and this attack was thwarted because of these undercover police officers. The problems arose after the undercover police officers had switched out the dynamite sticks with phony dynamite sticks. Now, for this first location, the Bronx police precinct, the entire attack had been completely thwarted. The fake dynamite sticks went off, they did absolutely no damage, the caps exploded but no dynamite, and nobody would end up being hurt at this location. At the second precinct, now remember there's 2 precincts, so the first one is the Bronx 44th precinct, this one is the Manhattan 24th precinct. Now at the second precinct, the sticks had also been switched out for fake ones. It didn't really turn out to matter very much though that they were fakes, because they weren't lit correctly. And even the cap of these didn't go off. There was not even a phony explosion to make people think that it may have been an attack. Nothing happened at this location. Everything just went completely sideways at this location. And again, nobody would end up being hurt. Now, the last of 3 locations was the Queens Board of Education office. And this is the only location that the undercover police officers wouldn't get a chance to thwart. At this location, the group was able to get real dynamite sticks that had never been in contact with the undercover cops that were involved in it, and these dynamite sticks would blow a huge hole into the side of the building at the Queens Board of Education office. The plan was to light off the dynamite and then sit on a rooftop nearby with a long-range rifle, picking people and police officers off as they fled the exploding building. So there's a person nearby, they're on a roof, they have a rifle, and as people run away from the explosion, they're taking people out on the street. After the attack, 21 Black Panthers were arrested in the initial sweep on April 2nd, 1969, and these 21 people are the entire leadership of the eastern region of the Black Panther Party. After the arraignment, there were only 13 people left sitting in jail. Everybody else made bail. They weren't out of the trial, but they were able to get out of jail. And they were being held on Rikers Island facing charges of conspiracy. The police charged that although only 3 locations were actually hit, there was a plan to take out several police officers, 4 police stations, 5 department stores, and the Bronx Botanical Gardens. These guys that are arrested, the 13 guys that were arrested and sitting in jail, they sat in prison for months because they couldn't come up with the bail. It was a gigantic $100,000 per defendant. So the community rallied around them because they're looking at this and they're like, wait a minute, nobody actually got hurt. Like, there was a hole blown in the side of the building, but I couldn't find any proof that anybody actually died or even got shot at that location. Like, it was thwarted immediately. So why is bail so high? Why are so many people sitting in jail for such a long time? So the community rallied and they decided that they were going to help get these guys out of jail. Churches and celebrities threw functions. They made art to be sold. They did everything in their power to come up with the money to get all of these defendants out of jail so that they could await trial out of prison. The Panthers 21 trial would be the longest and most expensive trial in New York City history up until that date. Tupac's mom, Afeni, represented herself in the trial, which is absolute insanity. She was facing 300 years in jail, and she was 9 months pregnant, about to pop by the end of the trial, and had absolutely zero education or training for the part of a lawyer, but she held her own. She had witnesses, she argued to the prosecution, she did her damn thing, and she held herself down. She saved herself and everybody else in this trial. The whole trial fell apart, and all of the defendants were found not guilty because of Afeni. She was an absolute beast. Like, this girl killed it in this trial. She called one of the 3 undercover cops up to the stand, and she got him to admit that the 3 of them, all 3 undercover officers, had been the organizers of most, if not all, of the unlawful activity that had gone on, and that they had misrepresented the Panthers to their bosses. She also got them to admit that the work that they had done as a group was powerful, inspiring, and beautiful, and that beyond a lot of grandiose talk, he hadn't ever seen her or any of the other defendants committing any criminal act. After Afeni got one of the cops to admit that on the stand, the jury deliberated for a whopping 45 minutes before acquitting every single one of the 21 Panthers on trial. After 2 years in and out of the Women's House of Detention, Afeni was released from prison on May 12, 1971, a month before she gave birth to Tupac on June 16th. Tupac's original name, Lisanne Parrish Crooks, was based on Carol Jean Crooks, a queer inmate that Afeni had met while she was in jail, and she had gotten really close to her. She was known as Crooksy, and she took Afeni under her wing, treated her like family, helped her with trial, and pretty much just took care of her the whole time she was in prison. So that's how he got his name. It was in honor of her. After being released from jail, police quadrupled their surveillance of the group. They quadrupled the surveillance, the harassment, and the provocation against the entire Black Panther Party. The members were very rarely able to find a real job, which just pushed them deeper and deeper into the party in order to survive. It also led to a lot of the members getting addicted to drugs, and Tupac's mom was not immune to this. She became a crack addict. the Black Panther Party fell apart as more and more members were killed or imprisoned or became drug addicts, and the group fought against each other, and everything seemed to fall apart, and before long, there was no Black Panther Party left. But even with an addiction, Tupac always claimed that his mother was somebody to be very, very proud of. I go through the story of the Black Panthers and what they believed and what they did because Tupac also held these ideals. They shaped him into who he was, and they were the thoughts behind what was going on in his music. There's literally a book called The American Family, The Shakurs and the Nation They Created. And I want to read this little excerpt from this article really quick before I move on because it really says everything that I want to say and it says it really well. Unlike other prominent American families, the Shakurs did not have millions of dollars to establish universities and foundations in their name. But what they did was create a powerful legacy of resistance. The Shakurs committed themselves to the cause of Black liberation and challenged white supremacy in the face of intense government repression through various revolutionary groups, including the Revolutionary Action Movement, the Black Panther Party, and the Black Liberation Army. At every step, they worked to empower Black communities across the nation, often filling in the gaps left open because of the inattention and indifference of American leaders. Now, after getting hooked on drugs, Afeni would take Tupac and they would move to Baltimore. They moved to 3955 Greenmount Avenue in the Penn Lucy neighborhood of Baltimore. That street now goes by Tupac Shakur Way. Tupac would later say that his mom didn't get addicted to drugs until they moved to California, but every source out there says that it was before they moved to Baltimore that she got hooked, so I don't know. Tupac would say that growing up, he was the total opposite of what he was when he got later in life and became famous. He said that he was quiet, withdrawn, he read a lot, he wrote in his journal, he wrote poetry, he watched TV all the time. Like, he was a total introvert. He started to get a bit more extroverted when he started to smoke vegetables. He hung out with bad influences and just kind of got a little more involved in the community. He said that he tried drug dealing for a few weeks, but it didn't work out, and the drug dealers would eventually take their drugs back and wouldn't let him sell for them. He would say that he had 2 jobs in his life. The first one was at a pizza place, and the second one was at a grocery store bagging groceries. He got fired from the grocery store for writing raps on the clock. Tupac began getting involved in political activism as well. He would canvass from door to door to warn people about the dangers of gun violence and teen pregnancy. He spoke out about the injustices in the Black community. And soon he started to make music with the messages of Black empowerment, self-determination, and liberation, all the ideals that his family had taught him growing up, and ideals that the Black Panther Party had been built on. He went to a regular school up until he hit 10th grade, and once he hit 10th grade, he would switch high schools regularly because they moved a lot. But in 10th grade, he transferred to the Baltimore School of the Arts. And the Baltimore School of the Arts is where he honed his craft. He studied acting, he studied poetry, jazz, ballet, just got really, really into art. He would perform in school plays. And it was here that he started to make a large group of friends. He made a lot of friends while he was here at the Baltimore School of the Arts. One of the best friends that he would make here at the Baltimore School of the Arts was Jada Pinkett, who would later come to be known as Jada Pinkett Smith. And he became really good friends with Jada. He would write poems for her. He won a school competition as the school's best rapper, rapping about her. And he was just a really popular kid at this school overall. Tupac and Jada became best friends, but Jada said that Tupac was a little funny looking, but that he had a very magnetic personality and that would suck her in, so she got really close with him. She said that Tupac was one of the first male figures to see her for her, separated from like her sexuality and her ability to do sexual things for a guy. At the time that they met and started hanging out, Jada was a drug dealer and Tupac wasn't. She said that as she was getting out of that thug life with dealing drugs and doing all kinds of bad criminal stuff, Tupac was getting into it. So she's trying to get out of it. He's trying to get into it. Now, as I said, later on, Jada Pinkett would become Jada Pinkett Smith, going on to marry Will Smith. When Will Smith talked about Tupac, he would say that Jada's relationship with Tupac was a challenging trial for him. He's quoted as saying, "He triggered my perception of myself as a coward. I hated that I wasn't what he was in the world, and I suffered a raging jealousy. I wanted Jada to look at me like that. He said, "The way Jada loved Pac rendered me incapable of being friends with him. I was too immature." Now, even with all that history, they both always maintained that they were always strictly friends. They never dated, they never anything, never went past that. Jada would say that one time she asked Tupac to kiss her, and that the kiss was the most disgusting kiss for us both. So they were not like dating, they weren't in love, they were just really, really, really good friends. She said that she stopped being friends with him because she viewed the direction that he was going in as dangerous and destructive. But Tupac would continue writing poetry about her, for her, and sending it to her. And it was at this time, while he was at the Baltimore School of the Arts, that Tupac would say that he was at his happiest. After Baltimore, Tupac's family would move to Marin City in California in 1988, and he would go to Tamalpais High School. I know I just butchered the shit out of that name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Tamalpais? I don't know. So this is the school that he would be attending when he officially dropped out of high school. His mom stayed in Baltimore and sent Tupac ahead of her to get kind of the lay of the land and get everything figured out, get an apartment, get everything they needed. And that's what he did. So he came to California as a teenager by himself to get the family set up. But when he got to California, he didn't have anywhere to stay. He said that he was staying at a friend of his mother's. So he really couldn't get serious about school or work or anything because he had survival at the front of his brain. Like, he just needed a place to stay. He needed something to eat. He couldn't get anything structured set up while he's living this lifestyle. When he was asked why he didn't enroll in an arts high school when he got to California, Tupac would say, "I couldn't find one. 'Cause when I came to California, I was broke. So I had to go to a regular high school." He said he dropped out of the school because he didn't have enough credits to graduate on time, and he had to get paid and he had to start his career, so it wasn't worth it to just continue going to high school for an extra year because he didn't have the credits. And I totally understand that. That's why I dropped out of college. I've been there. When you switch schools a lot, only certain credits will count, and you can end up being in school for a lot longer, and it makes it not worth it, and you drop out. I totally get it. It was also in 1988 that Tupac started rapping. He took the stage name of MC New York, and he got a manager pretty quickly after starting to make music. His manager, Leela Steinberg, managed Tupac and his rap group, Strictly Dope. It was around this time that he started dating Yolanda Yo-Yo Whitaker, a female rapper. They broke up, but nothing ever really happened to make them break up. They just had a lot of space between them. They were both on the road, both up and coming megastars, and they were doing their own performances. They really just didn't have time for each other. They developed more of like a sibling relationship. Like, she would say, "I look at Tupac as my brother." But later on, Whitaker would say that even years later, that they dated all their lives and she was still his. So this was like one of those, eternal loves. Best friends turned lovers, turned best friends, couldn't make it work, but that was her love. With Leila Steinberg as his manager, Tupac got signed up with Atron Gregory, who put him to work as a roadie and a backup dancer for his own group, Digital Underground. Now, after years of working for the Digital Underground tour, he changed his name to Tupac 2PAC and signed with Interscope Records. It was under this record label that he came out with the single, Same Song. This song got gigantic because it was made part of a movie called Nothing But Trouble, and it was a movie with some pretty huge stars. There were stars like Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, and Demi Moore. So a lot of people went to see this movie, and when they went to see the movie, they got crazy about Tupac because his song was in this movie. And that was a huge stepping stone for his career. When Tupac remembered his time with Digital Underground, he remembers it as like a little bit silly, a little bit embarrassing. He says that he remembers it as a time that he was running around in zebra print underwear, making simulated sex with blow-up dolls, with the funniest, craziest show. And, you get a bunch of young people together, they're always gonna do like funny, crazy shit. I could totally see it. But Tupac didn't really work well in a group. Strictly Dope or Digital Underground, it just didn't work for him. He was meant to be a solo artist. A co-founder of Digital Underground, Jimmy Chopmaster J. Drite, said that Tupac was on a mission from day one. Maybe he knew he wasn't going to be around 7 days later. So Chopmaster J was like, yeah, that boy was never going to fit into a group. He was made to just hold the spotlight on his own. But even though he didn't work well in a group, Digital Underground would stick together and they would help Tupac get further in his career. They were around from 1988 to 1991, and they would help him and Strictly Dope to record a bunch of music that would end up being lost to time. Years later, in the year 2000, recordings of these tapes were found and released, and they were called The Lost Tapes, circa 1989. Tupac's mother, Afeni, would sue Digital Underground to stop them from being able to sell and release these recordings, but the lawsuit was settled and the recordings continued to be sold. They were re-released as Beginnings, The Lost Tapes from 1988 to 1991. Tupac became a worldwide celebrity after releasing his first album, Tupacalypse Now, in 1991. The name Tupacalypse Now was in reference to a movie called Apocalypse Now, a movie that came out in 1979. This album had bangers like If My Homie Calls and Brenda's Got a Baby. The rest of the songs are called Young Black Male, Soldier's Story, Violent, Something Wicked, The Lunatic, Part-Time Mother, Trapped, I Don't Give a Fuck, Words of Wisdom, Crooked Ass N-Word, and Rebel of the Underground. Now, alongside this album, he also starred in a movie called Juice. In 1991, Tupac attended an industry event where he was introduced to Lisa Left Eye Lopez. The two hit it off and became really, really close friends. Lisa said that she was immediately attracted to Tupac, but he had said to her, "Never let me sleep with you, no matter what happens." And she listened to him, and they never crossed that line in the sand. She listened to him. That was a boundary that he had, and she never crossed it. They were both getting famous in their own right at the time. Tupac as an actor and a rap artist, Lisa as a coveted member of the group TLC, so they never crossed that line in the sand. Lisa started dating a friend of Tupac's called Andre Reason, and Tupac was cool with it. That was his friend, he was cool. And since he and Lisa had never gone anywhere but friends, he supported it. He supported the relationship, he loved it, he hung out with the both of them together, loved it. Tupac didn't know though that Andre was an abusive piece of shit. When he found out that Andre was being abusive, Tupac rescued Lisa from a fight in which she lit his house on fire during like a blowout fight. He pulled an Eminem and Rihanna move, grabbing her out of there and bringing her back to the studio. She was actually in the studio when Tupac debuted Hit 'Em Up in 1996, which was like a huge moment in this boy's career. Lisa Lopez looked at Tupac as her soulmate. Even though they never became anything more than friends, he was her soulmate. She wouldn't live long to mourn his memory though. She died in her own accident involving a car on April 25th, 2002. And honestly, this was a Mandela effect for me because I totally was convinced that this girl died in a plane crash. And I know that I'm thinking of Aaliyah, but like I was fully convinced that Lisa Left Eye Lopez died in a plane crash, but that's just me getting two people confused. But it's crazy the way that you remember stuff. I don't know. Now, the album, when he did finally release it, was widely loved by the public. But like most rappers, the government absolutely hated this shit. When the album came out, the Vice President of the United States was Dan Quayle. He's quoted as saying, "There's no reason for a record like this to be released. It has no place in our society." When asked about it, Tupac is quoted as saying, "I just wanted to rap about things that affected young black males. When I said that, I didn't know I was going to tie myself down to just take all the blunts and hits for all the young black males, to be the media's kicking post for young black males." This album would eventually end up going certified gold with 500,000 copies sold, and that's like a huge, huge accomplishment. When he got a tattoo across his stomach that said "Thug Life," he explained that there was a lot more meaning to this tattoo. He said that it was actually an acronym, meaning the hate you give little infants fucks everybody. And changes came from this album. The next album that Tupac released was called Strictly for My N, and it was released in February of 1993. Now, this album got a lot more popular a lot more quickly because it followed on the heels of the first album. Tupac had already gained worldwide fame between his first album, the movie, the song being such a blockbuster hit. So when this song came out, it debuted at number 24 on the Billboard 200. This album included the single I Get Around, which featured Digital Underground artist, and the song itself reached number 11 on Billboard Hot 100. This is also the album that included Keep Your Head Up. This album is certified platinum, and it sold 1.366 million copies. And it's around this time that Tupac would have a run-in with another up-and-coming star, a rapper coming out of New York going by the name of Notorious B.I.G. We all know him now as Biggie, and it's easier to say Biggie, so when I refer to him, I'm gonna call him Biggie because it's a lot easier than Notorious B.I.G. So that's where we're going. If we're talking about him, we're calling him Biggie. So Biggie and Tupac meet when Biggie is in California and he's like playing around. He meets a dealer. He goes to the dealer. He tells this dealer that he wants to meet Tupac. And the dealer is like, I bet, I got you. Let's go make that happen. Dealer and Biggie head over to Tupac's place. He introduces the two, and the two become besties. At the first meeting, Tupac shared what would be described as a freezer bag of the greenest vegetables I'd ever seen. They, let's say, eat the vegetables, and they're all feeling good. And Tupac pulls out a green army bag that's filled to the brim with pew-pews. I have a bunch of green army bags. I have one laying around somewhere. After the army, I refuse to ever buy luggage ever again. I only use that green army bag anywhere I go. So I'll put a picture of it up here. It's very like you've seen a green army bag. There's a lot of stuff that it can hold. So if it's filled to the brim with pew-pews, there is a lot of pew-pews in there. These are all unloaded, so they're not dangerous. And the guys take them out and they run around the backyard playing like little toddlers, like they're playing cops and robbers, like they're just having a ball in the backyard. Now, while they're all playing, Pac goes inside, whips up a nice meal, and serves all of the guys steaks, French fries, bread, and Kool-Aid. Now, I don't know about you, but pretty much every New York dude that I've ever met in my entire life would be swayed by this. Hand them vegetables, pew-pews, and food, and you're gonna have a best friend for life. And that's exactly what happened here. A great friendship formed. Now, since they're both rappers, and they're both on the fast track to success, fame, and stardom, the two would regularly travel to each other's neck of the woods. And they would always hang out when they got there. Biggie would crash on Tupac's couch whenever he visited California. Pac would come to Biggie's neighborhood in Brooklyn, and the pair would go hang out in Pac's limo. They were just really good friends, and they really got to know each other well. Tupac was a big star, and Biggie was an up-and-coming star. Not quite famous yet, but he was well known in his own locale for like his skills and his talent. They went public with their friendship too. They performed at the Budweiser Superfest at Madison Square Garden in 1993, and Tupac would always welcome Biggie up on the stage to perform at his concerts. Tupac said that Biggie was like his lieutenant. Now, I'm not going to go through Biggie right now because, as I said, I plan to do these videos in steps, and Biggie's going to get his own episode that will lead up to this point. But for now, I will say that Biggie is, at this moment, being managed by a dude that goes by Puffy. But Biggie loves Tupac, and he asks him if Tupac will manage him in his career. Biggie felt like he wasn't rising to fame fast enough. He felt like he was going to miss his shot by sticking with this small record label that Puffy had created, and he wanted the superstardom that Tupac had, and Tupac had already achieved. But Tupac told him no. He said, stick with Puff. He told him, Puff will make you a star. Stick with him. So now, this is around the time where the situation with Pac getting arrested starts. So I'm going to veer off this topic, and we're going to keep it moving, and we're going to go through Pac and Biggie's relationship and what went wrong in a different episode. So I'm really sorry to leave you guys with a cliffhanger, but I promise you we are going to go through it. So back to Tupac. Tupac started dating Madonna in 1993, and they would casually date from around 1993 to 1995. In 2017, a letter dated on January 15th, 1995 was uncovered. It was dated at 4:30 in the morning and signed by Tupac and addressed to Madonna. And apparently, this note detailed just how strong their relationship actually was. This note mentions an argument that the two had. The actual note in its entirety has never actually been released, but TMZ does share an excerpt from this note. So I'll just read it off bar for bar. In this letter, he says, "First and foremost, I must apologize to you. Like I said, I haven't been the kind of friend I know I'm capable of being." The rapper then described their breakup as a consequence of the pressure being in an interracial relationship might put on his music career. However, the letter ended amicably, suggesting that the stars left on a good note. "I don't know how you feel about visiting me, but if you could find it in your heart, I would love to speak face to face with you. It's funny, but this experience has taught me not to take time for granted. In 2018, Madonna confirmed that there is a song that exists between the two of them that they recorded together, and that she would release the song one day, but it still hasn't officially been released here in 2025. I did find a song called I'd Rather Be Your Lover, and people in the comments claim that it's real, and that the song really is with the two of them, but there's been no official confirmation or denial. It damn sure sounds real though, and it sounds very on brand for the era. I guess you guys be the judge. I'll put the link to the video in the description of this video, and I tend to lean towards this being real. It sounds exactly like Tupac and Madonna, and I especially think it's real because Tupac says in the song, even when the media is getting greedier, you make them hip sway, creeping with that blonde ambition. And Blonde Ambition is in reference to the Blonde Ambition World Tour that Madonna did in April through August of 1990. So I personally think it's real, but I don't know. You be the judge. Later that year, in 1993, Tupac formed another rap group called Thug Life. This group consisted of Tupac, Tyrus Big Syke Himes, Dyron Macadocious Rivers, Mopreme Shakur, Tupac's stepbrother, and Walter Rated R. Burns. Biggie would actually request to be a part of this group, but Tupac declined. Even after Tupac left Thug Life, they would continue to perform without him. The only album this group ever put out together was called Thug Life Volume 1, and it was released on October 11th, 1994. It is certified gold. Tupac performed a single called Out on Bail from this album at the 1994 Source Awards. Now, here's where we're going to get to the heavy stuff, and most of the heavy stuff is going to be in part 2, but we got to talk about this for a second before we move on because it's a pretty big part of the story. Tupac was arrested on November 29th, 1994, and these are some pretty hefty charges. Now, let's just stop here and talk about exactly what happened, because it's pretty rare that I fall upon sources that are talking about the actual charges and what actually happened. Most sources, like the documentaries, the articles, they all reference this arrest. And they all tell what the charges were, but nobody ever actually talks about what happened. Like, what actually happened. They kind of gloss over it, and they act like this was just like a wild accusation that came out of nowhere, and that Tupac hadn't actually ever met this girl, and it was just a ploy for someone to get money from a rich and famous dude. But that's not what happened. This did stem from an actual incident, so let's stop here and talk about what actually happened. Okay, so Tupac is in New York and he's filming for Above the Rim in 1994. Above the Rim is a movie about two main characters. Dwayne Martin plays Kyle Lee Watson, and Tupac plays Birdie. Kyle is a high school basketball star, and he has a relationship with two brothers. One, a former basketball star that's now working as a security guard, and one, a drug dealer whose name is Birdie, and Tupac portrays Birdie. Now, Tupac decided that he was gonna be a method actor. Think of the way that, like, mafia actors are always hanging out with real-life mafia members. It's the same thing. Robert De Niro hung out with Anthony Ruggiano to get ready for Analyze This. Al Pacino, James Caan, Joe Namath. A lot of huge celebrities are well known for their ties with the mafia for one reason or another, and Tupac took this idea and ran with it. And he would become besties with new people to study for his role in Above the Rim. So one night, he goes into a nightclub in Manhattan, and he notices a man named Haitian Jack Agnon. And he notices him because this boy is big balling, okay? He's surrounded by girls, there's champagne bottles everywhere, he's got expensive jewelry on, and all the girls in the place are vying for this man's attention. All the richest and most important people in the club are coming up to introduce themselves and show Haitian Jack respect. The employees of the club are respectful for him. It's very, very clear right off the jump that this guy matters. So that attracts Tupac's attention, and he wants an introduction. So he gets introduced, and he starts hanging out with this guy named Haitian Jack, and Tupac is now hanging out with him and saying that he's studying him and basing his personality for Birdie based on Haitian Jack. Haitian Jack is clearly into the same kind of shit that Birdie is into. Haitian Jack is the gangster that Tupac is trying to portray as Birdie. So it's a logical idea to watch how this guy moves and try to mirror Birdie after Haitian Jack. Now, how this makes any actual logical sense when Tupac made it very clear that he grew up in ghettos, like, it's kind of beyond me. I don't really understand, but, you know, whatever. We're gonna take this at face value. We're gonna say that he's hanging out with Haitian Jack as a case study. Remember, Biggie loves Tupac. They're besties. And Biggie has always wanted to work with Tupac, but Tupac keeps kind of declining. He keeps pushing him off. He's like, no, stay with your manager. I'm not going to manage you. Stay on your own. I'm not going to let you join my group. He refuses to bring Biggie into the fold. So Biggie idolizes Tupac. So Biggie hears that Tupac is hanging out with Haitian Jack, and he goes to him and he's like, yo, I know this guy from the block. Like, this guy and I grew up together. Steer clear of him, please. Like, Haitian Jack is trouble. He is not the kind of guy that you want to hang out with. Trust me. I'm from this area. I'm from these streets. I know him. Stay away. I know his people. I know him. Just listen to me. Please, please, please listen to me. Just stay away. And Tupac absolutely wasn't hearing that. He's like, no, you don't know anything. I'm Tupac. I'm just doing research for a part. It's not like I can get mixed up with anything serious. He's not seriously a dangerous person. And Biggie's like, no, yes, he is. He is a dangerous person. Seriously, please stay away. And Tupac's like, I'm Tupac. Okay, I do what I want. Everything will be fine. Haitian Jack was probably the person that introduced Tupac to Madonna. He's known as somebody that would bring big celebrities around to places that he was at. He was known for hanging out with Madonna, Shabba Ranks, Buju Banton. Rosie Perez said that she was the one that introduced Tupac and Madonna, but how much do you want to bet that they locked eyes across the room when Haitian Jack brought Madonna to the place? And Rosie was just the one that made the first actual official introduction. Like, I would bet anything it was Haitian Jack. Or that Rosie Perez got with Haitian Jack to make the introduction. I guarantee you Haitian Jack had a piece to play in this whole introduction. Okay, so Tupac continues hanging out with Bad News Bear Haitian Jack against the warnings of Biggie. Now, one night in November of 1993, Tupac and Haitian Jack go to a club called Nell's in Manhattan. And they're vibing, they're chilling, they're having a grand old time, everything's going great. And Tupac starts dancing with 19-year-old Ayanna Jackson. The two hit it off. They're getting along, they're dancing, everything is great, and Tupac ends up bringing Ayanna back to the hotel with him. He's staying at the Le Parker Meridian Hotel. She comes back with him, she has a great time, she leaves, everything's kosher, everything went beautifully. 4 days later, Ayanna hits Tupac up again. She had a really great time the first time. She wants to come through and hang out again. Like, let's get something going here. We had a great time the first night. Everything went great. Why not hang out again? And Tupac is like, yeah, hell yeah. Like, I don't got to go to a club and like pick up. Totally. Come through. Let's chill. She comes back to the Le Parker Meridian Hotel. She goes up to Tupac's room and she expects it to just be her and Tupac because, I mean, that's what it was the first night. Why would you expect anything different? But she's surprised when she walks into a room full of people. Not only is Tupac there, but there's an additional 3 dudes there. But whatever, like, Ayanna is really feeling Tupac. Tupac is famous at this point, so, like, it's worth it. She's sticking around. She is going to make this work. Hopefully, the two of them could just break off and do their own thing in a little while, but whatever. If I gotta spend some time with his friends, that's what it is. I don't care. Police are called a few hours later, and Tupac is arrested, along with Haitian Jack and Charles Man Fuller, Tupac's road manager. A 4th man was at the hotel, but he's never been identified, so I really don't think that dude was ever arrested. Which is super weird how there was somebody there that wasn't arrested. That means that everybody that was arrested was actually involved in this. I don't know. Ayanna tells police that the entire group, assaulted her, essayed her, and forced her to perform oral. When the police are arresting the men for the claims that Ayanna made, police find a bag filled with unregistered pew-pews. There's another charge. Tupac was arrested and held in jail on charges of essay in the 1st degree, sodomy in the 1st degree, attempted sodomy in the 1st degree, and weapons charges. Ayanna claims that Tupac set her up to be raped in this hotel room. Tupac held a press conference in front of the courthouse, saying that he was guilty of a lot of things, but that he was absolutely not guilty of this. And he adamantly rejected the idea that he had anything to do with any of these charges. While standing on trial for these charges, Tupac and Man stood trial together, but Haitian Jack was separated and he stood on trial on his own. Haitian Jack pled guilty to 2 misdemeanors and he got off with no jail time. Tupac's lawyers said that deal was too good to be true. So Tupac thought that Haitian Jack was a snitch. He told the New York Daily News that Jack had set him up. But both Haitian Jack and Ayana say that that's absolutely not true. After the trial was over, Tupac did an interview with Vibe, where he said that he blamed himself for doing nothing to protect Ayana from the other men. Now, this situation right here is the beginning of the end for Tupac. Everything that would happen after this point would really just be an extension of this situation right here. This situation, I will say with full boldness, this situation is what killed Tupac. Now, Tupac is starting to not trust people because he believed Haitian Jack was his boy. They were inseparable. They hung out every day. He trusted this man. Like, this man was a huge part of Tupac's life for a really long time. But then he went on and did interviews where he said that Haitian Jack set him up. So now he has someone that was his best friend turning into a snitch, turning into someone that would set him up to get arrested. And while this is going on, Tupac is going broke defending himself. He's defending himself against these charges that he claims he has no part in, so he needs to get money somehow. What's his primary source of income? Rapping. So he's going to take money to rap on other people's songs. Now, another way in which this whole situation really messed with Tupac and his head is that while he was hanging out with Haitian Jack, he starts to feel invincible. Whenever he goes out, he's wearing super expensive clothes, super expensive jewelry. I'm talking like tens of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. And he's really not worried about people messing with him. Why? Because people knew not to mess with Haitian Jack. He was very well known. Like, I'm talking everybody in the world knew who Haitian Jack was. So nobody would ever touch Tupac while he was on the streets of New York with Haitian Jack. And he starts to feel like, okay, nobody's ever gonna mess with me. When he was out with Jack, it was perfectly fine to wear a $50,000 necklace. Nobody would mess with Jack. So nobody would mess with Tupac because Tupac was with Jack. But it turns out that that protection did not extend to Tupac when he was not with Haitian Jack. So the next time that he goes out and he decides he's going to go do the same things as he always did, walk the streets of New York, go to Times Square, wearing a $50,000 necklace and like tens of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry, he did it. He didn't feel like he was in danger, but he did it without Haitian Jack standing next to him. And that's where things went south. Now, as I said, Tupac is in financial trouble. He spent tens of thousands of dollars defending himself against these charges, and his bank account is plummeting into the negative. His mother's about to lose her house. Like, things are not going well for Tupac right now. One of the guys that he met while he was hanging out with Haitian Jack was a guy named Jimmy Henchman Rosemond. Henchman's like his nickname. And Rosemond manages a rapper named Little Sean. Little Sean wants to do a song with Tupac, so the manager, Henchman, reaches out to Tupac and he's like, hey, remember me? We hung out with Jack. Yeah, like, I got a rapper here, he wants you on his song. I know you're in financial trouble, so if you get on this song, we'll give you $7,000 for a guest spot. Just come through and, you know, let's get this done. And Tupac's feeling good about this. Even though he thinks Haitian Jack set him up, so, like, obviously he's going to be a little weary of Rosemond since he met Rosemond through Jack, Little Sean is somebody that's pretty close with Biggie and Diddy, and those are his besties. So Tupac kind of reasons, and he's like, listen, I kind of deserve this. Biggie told me to stay away from Haitian Jack. I didn't listen. That's on me. I just went and ignored Biggie and hung out with Jack, and I think I got set up, but Biggie told me that something like this was going to happen. Biggie signs off on Little Sean. I feel safe going and doing a song with Little Sean. So I guess I can trust him because Biggie says that Lil Sean is okay. And my bank account could really use that $7,000. So what's the harm? Biggie says that he's going to be there for the song, so nothing bad can happen. Like, Biggie's my boy. He's had my back the entire time. Everything's going to be fine. Spoiler alert, everything was not fine. So it's November 30th, 1994, and Tupac goes out and he goes to record this song. When he walks up to the door, there's 3 dudes standing in front of the door wearing army fatigues. I would assume, given the time, they're wearing something that looks like this. So obviously, anybody walking up to a building and sees 3 dudes standing in front of the door wearing army fatigues, like, you're going to be a little sketched out. And these guys don't look like, oh, we're wearing army fatigues and we're in the army. Like, these guys are clearly like gangsters and they're wearing army fatigues, and he doesn't get a great feeling about it, but he feels a lot better when a rapper named Lil Cease pops his head out of the window and he yells down that he was going to come down and get him. According to Biggie and his people, they didn't know that Tupac was coming to the studio that night. and Biggie sent Cease down to the street to go get him. Cease also told Tupac that Biggie and Diddy were in the studio at the time when he leaned his head out. So Tupac's feeling a lot better about the whole situation. He's like, all right, cool. Biggie and Diddy are in the studio. Everything's Gucci. Like, I don't feel great about these three guys, but it's okay. I'm gonna live here. So Cease gets on the elevator and he heads downstairs to grab Pac and bring him back up to the studio. In between the time when Cease leaned his head out of the window and the time when Cease got to the door to grab him, the dudes that had been standing in front of the building wearing army fatigues jumped Tupac and his crew. They pulled out pew-pews and they ordered Pac and his friends to all get on the ground. Instead of getting on the ground, Pac reached around to grab for his pew-pew, and the dudes did not take this well. They blasted him, they beat the crap out of him, and they robbed him of his jewelry. Cease gets out of the elevator and he goes to the front door to grab him, and he comes face to face with two pew-pews being held at his face. Now, Tupac is still getting beat up while Cease is there. Even after he's been blasted, he's still getting beat up. So he plays dead. And him playing dead is what makes these guys ultimately stop beating on him. So they blasted him 5 times, and they robbed him of $40,000 in gold chains, diamond rings, all of that. Everything on him they took. Now, I've seen conflicting reports of exactly what happened here. In articles, it says that after the dudes that robbed him left, Pac got up to the elevator and went up to the studio by himself. The documentary says that Cease came out of the elevator and had pew-pews pointed in his face. So I don't know exactly what happened here, but I think it's more likely that Pac got on the elevator after being blasted and went up to the studio, and that kind of just makes a little more sense because Tupac would talk about what happened in the studio. He said that Biggie and Diddy were there and they looked surprised and guilty. Now, maybe Cease grabbed him from the street and brought him up to the studio. I don't really know exactly what happened, but I'm thinking most likely Tupac did actually make it up to the studio. But Diddy said, like, that absolutely didn't happen. We didn't look shocked and guilty. Like, we were fine. We showed him nothing but love and concern. So obviously, Tupac gets rushed off to the hospital. And while he's in the hospital, Biggie went to the hospital to see him, but he was turned away at the door. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little weird that Biggie says that he didn't know that Tupac was going to the studio that day. It seems like the recording session was set up ahead of time, and I could see why Pac would be sketched out if they have this recording scheduled, and then Biggie goes out to the media and says, oh, I had no idea Pac was going to be there. Like, why would you not know that he was coming to the studio to record a video for the rapper that you're boys with? Usually a $7,000 transaction is set up way ahead of time. So I don't know, man. I totally feel like Biggie knew it was going to happen. It's just overall a very weird and sketchy situation. So either way, regardless of what happened, Tupac was blasted 5 times during this robbery. When he talked about the heist itself, he would say that it was like these 3 guys were mad at him, which is what led to Pac feeling like this was a setup. This was an ambush rather than just a random mugging on the street. Like, why are these guys still beating him after they blasted him, after they robbed him? Like, they already had all of his jewelry in their hands while they were still beating on him. Why would they do that if they weren't, like, if this wasn't a personal vendetta, if they didn't have something against him? When forensics was done, they said that it was very likely that Pac had actually blasted himself in some cases. But either way, it's indisputable that he was blasted multiple times by these dudes. Overall, he caught 5 holes in this encounter. The one that was in dispute was the shot that came to his scrotum. That's the one that forensics say came from him. He actually blasted himself. But the rest of the holes, they 100% came from these 3 guys that robbed him. At least one of these holes was to the head. So I'm not surprised that they were convinced that he was no longer breathing when they left. Usually, if you put a hole in someone's head and they're not moving anymore, it's pretty likely they're no longer living. After this all goes down, Tupac believes that it's Biggie that set him up. Police believe that it was Haitian Jack that set him up. They believe that it was a message in response to the Daily News article where Tupac said that Haitian Jack set him up to catch these charges. In 2005, the guy that originally got in touch with Tupac to set up the meeting, Jimmy Henchman Rosemond, did an interview with Vibe. He told Vibe, "Nobody came to rob you. They came to discipline you." And that's pretty much saying they came to discipline you because you got on the news and said that Haitian Jack set you up. And if you didn't know that Haitian Jack was a powerful gangster, why were you hanging out with him in the first place? Like, what did you expect? And there is some validity to that. Like, you wanted to hang out with him in the first place because of what an important and dangerous gangster this guy is. And then you got on the news and you said that he set you up. You pretty much called him a snitch. What did you think was going to happen? Like, come on, man. Like, this is really not the smartest thing you could have done. Honestly, if I had someone like that come after me, I would have shut my mouth. Like, I know I open up my mouth a lot on these videos, and I say a lot of things that a lot of people say that I shouldn't say. But in a 1v1 situation where I have a gangster that's very well known for being a very important and dangerous gangster, I'm shutting my mouth. Like, come on, man. But whatever, you know, we are where we are. He did what he did, and that's what Roseman says. Roseman said that they came to discipline him. Notice he did not say that they didn't come to unalive you. He never said that the whole point wasn't to take him out. He said that they didn't come to rob you. Now, obviously, Tupac never heard that comment. He was no longer alive in 2005 when he did that interview. But let's be real here. With that comment being said, knowing what we know now, I would say that it's pretty likely that everybody that was in the studio knew that that was going to happen. If Henchman was in the studio, he requested Pac come through and do the work, and he's saying that Pac was being disciplined. So more than likely, everybody knew it was going to happen. Honestly, up until I started doing research on this, I never thought that Biggie actually set up Pac or even knew that it was coming. I totally thought like, oh my God, this was so sad and how can you blame him? I never thought Biggie had anything to do with this. But now that I read up on it, I kind of think he did. I thought Pac was being paranoid. I thought he was pointing fingers and placing blame at the nearest person, and Biggie just so happened to be the nearest person, and it started a downward spiral that would start a war that would end up with the East Coast versus the West Coast, and it would end up taking both of these guys' lives. But after I heard that quote, they came to discipline you, it changed my whole opinion on the entire situation, and after that, I think it's pretty likely that Biggie did know that Tupac was gonna get jumped at the door. Especially since he said that he didn't know that Tupac was coming to the recording studio that day. Now, interestingly enough, there has been a confession about who blasted Tupac that day. A man named Dexter Isaac came forward, and he said that he was the one who blasted Tupac in that 1994 robbery at Quad Studios. And why did he do it? Well, he claims he was paid $2,500 by Jimmy Henchman Rosemond to ambush and mug Tupac. Isaac did an interview with All Hip Hop, and he said, "I have stayed silent in prison for the past 13 years, doing a life sentence like a real soldier should, when you and everybody have turned your backs on me. Now, I would like to clear a few things up, because the statute of limitations is over, and no one can be charged, and I'm just plain tired of listening to your lies." In 1994, James Roseman hired me to rob Tupac Shakur at the Quad Studios. He gave me $2,500 plus all the jewelry I took, except for one ring, which he wanted for himself. Now, why did Tupac think that Diddy and Biggie knew that this robbery was going to happen? And I think the reason for that is that they all knew damn well that it was Isaac who did the robbery. And they knew damn well that Isaac was well known not only to henchmen, but also to Diddy as well. Now, there's this whole argument about what comes next. So what happens next? Biggie has a song come out called Who Shot Ya? And it sounds a whole lot like he's talking about the situation about Pac getting hit outside Quad Studios. Like, it's very easy to see where this connection is made, why Tupac thinks that this song is about him. But the whole argument is, well, Biggie wrote this song and produced it and had it out before the robbery, so how could it possibly be about the robbery? But if Biggie knew that this was going to happen, wouldn't it line up that he could have made the song knowing that the crime was gonna be committed and just waited until after it was committed to release the song? Like, come on, we're not all very stupid. We can figure this out. I mean, now in 2025, I know it means absolutely nothing, but I think it's pretty clear. Like, yes, Biggie did know it was coming. Diddy did know it was coming. They all knew. I don't think they had any part in it. I don't think Biggie or Diddy or anybody had any, and I don't think Tupac ever thought that either. I think he was just mad that they knew it was gonna happen and they didn't warn him. But yeah, I fully believe that they knew. Tupac was completely convinced that Biggie and Diddy had something to do with him getting robbed and blasted. Biggie and Puffy adamantly denied having any knowledge or anything to do with this attack. Everybody involved claimed they had no idea what happened. Haitian Jack claimed he had no idea what went down or why, and he had no part in it. Way after the fact, on a completely separate charge, Jack was convicted of a crime and deported in 2007 back to Haiti. But we'll get more into this in the part 2 of Tupac. Alrighty, so now that I've gotten to the point that we've gone through the robbery, I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode here. Thanks so much for watching. Come back next week to watch part 2 of Tupac, and then we'll move on to Biggie and how their beef led to the both of them eventually meeting their end at very, very young ages. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, follow, do all the things, and I'll see you next week. Bye.